You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband, I don't mean him, though I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Well, hello, smart women, and welcome back to the Why Smart Women podcast. Today I am broadcasting from the northern beaches of Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, where it's about to get to 38 degrees Celsius, which is a heat wave. So there's all these things about not lighting fires and staying hydrated and taking care of the elderly and making sure that you're okay and keeping the air conditioning on because it's stinking, stinking hot. And out the western suburbs of Sydney, it's going to be in the low 40s.
Fair dinkum. Is it still going to get there? Is it going to get that hot?
I don't know, that's what they say.
Yeah.
Hello, David.
Hello there. Yeah, I was out this morning and I was surprised how temperate it felt. And maybe it's just because we're next to the ocean and it's dry heat. It's air that's been moving across the country, so it's not that awful kind of debilitating equatorial humidity that really
Knocks you sideways.
No. So
Anyway, so a couple of things have happened to me in the last week or so, which disturbed me and made me think about the safety of women. And the first thing that happened was I got into the lift in our building. Now, let's remember here that I'm a woman of a certain age. You know, I'm well over 50, so it's not like I'm some nubile, 20-year-old standing there in a short pair of shorts. Not there's anything wrong with that, but you would expect that sort of person to have more of a reaction to them.
no, I mean I find you very striking.
Thank you.
Which again I hope is not a bad thing. When you describe
Striking is fine. Look,
Absolutely.
I'm just a normal woman, but I'm not young. Is my point. I'm just a
Yeah.
normal woman. So I get into the lift.
I'm biased as well.
Thank you. I get into the lift and a man gets in with me, an older man, probably late 60s, early 70s, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, gee, I hope the lift breaks down." And I said, And he said, "Although I'd probably need a manual to work out what to do. It's been so long." And then we got out of the lift and he said, "Oh, I had a rape whistle once, but when I blew it, it didn't work." Anyway, so this sort of, male, whatever you want to call it, is pretty common, but it's more my reaction or lack of it that struck me in the ensuing days, because you would probably describe me as a fairly forthright person, wouldn't you, David?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I've heard that story before, so that's not the first time I've heard that. And in the retelling, it just makes me wince and recoil and flare up. Rape whistle? What?
Anyway, so I am not a retiring violet. I'm quite a forthright person, and yet I smiled at him, sort of half, I don't know, sort of gave a little half laugh, and then walked away. I didn't push back. I didn't make a joke of him. I didn't say anything smart or witty. I didn't diminish him. I did nothing. I just walked away. And so I guess he then would have thought, well, that went well, that interaction in the lift with the curly-haired woman. So then the next thing that happened is yesterday I was coming home from the city on the bus and a kerfuffle ensued. I was on the top deck of the bus.
Big yellow beeline bus.
And this kerfuffle ensued downstairs, and there was a male voice, very loud, very violent, using terrible language and throwing things. There was like crash, bang, throwing things around the bus. Anyway, so the other passengers, we all began looking at each other, and it was getting near my stop. And another woman looked at me, and she came over and she sat next to me, and she said, "I meant to get off here, but I'm too scared to get off. He's at the bottom of the stairs." And then we turned around, and there were two women that could look down the stairs. And I said, "Where is he?" And they said, "He's right just at the bottom of the stairs throwing things." And so then we sort of sat there and we thought, well, and she was shaking, this woman. She said, "I can't stand being around this. I hate it." So God knows, what that was doing to her nervous system. And then we sort of got near the stop, and some men stood up, and I said to the men, "Can you please go first? Can you go first?" And I held a hand, and I said, "I'll go after them and you come with me." Anyway, we went down this very narrow little, top deck to the bottom deck. And by the time we got to the bottom of the stairs, he'd got off the bus. But there was sort of detritus. There was sort of things had been thrown about the bus. It was really strange. Anyway, I got off, and she said, "Oh, God, that was horrible. I hated that. I hate being around that." And I said, "I know, it was terrible." And we sort of gave each other a hug, sort of like we've been in a war zone. And we're only in DY and, Sydney, nice, safe Sydney. And then I walked away, and I thought, what are we meant to do? How are we meant to behave? How are we meant to respond? How do we push back? And is this current environment where men feel entitled to say sexual things to a woman after being in her company for about, 3 seconds? And I don't know, maybe he was having a psychotic episode. I'm going to put my money on the fact that he was using ice, which makes people really aggressive. This male aggression, it's really awful. And I feel quite powerless in the face of it. David, anything to say on that?
No. Look, so much, but I thought I'd just let you sort of in the retelling. That was gripping. Did the bus slow down at all?
It was a female bus driver as well.
Right. So when you were aware of the kerfuffle and thing, the bus driver didn't stop the bus.
The bus driver, and someone said she's probably calling the DY police, which I imagine is what she was doing. She would have been calling the local police.
Yeah.
But no, the bus just was heading towards the bus stop. And then I thought, I don't want to get off one stop later because I was in a hurry and I wanted to get home. But yeah.
I mean, look, my first question is, how have you answered it? Why do you think?
Why do I think what?
I've seen you go toe-to-toe with people.
Yeah.
When you feel that some important rule has been transgressed.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not incapable of pushing back.
That's right. You took on a bunch of boys.
I did.
On the front stairs of this place. Have you told that story?
Oh, the boys that were swearing and they'd got into a fight with some other man. It gets
right.
pretty violent in the quadrangle.
Exactly, and then he strode up to them and pointed to the ringleader of one of them and shut him down. You are not going to say anything racist. You better not be. This better not be. A racist.
I told the girls there were those poor 14-year-old girls hanging around the background as well. I said, just go home. This is not a good environment. Just go home.
Yep.
And then another man came. And he said, of the police being called because it was this big kerfuffle. And I said, I don't know. And he sat with me. And then when David arrived, he said, I'm going now. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Yeah. So he was nice in making sure I never felt worried about that. Yeah. I'm not frightened of a bunch of 14-year-olds.
Okay. So, that's what you're capable of. In those kind of dangerous situations, you can do that. But when
it's not dangerous though, right?
Okay.
And that's the point.
In a lift,
you're vulnerable.
You're vulnerable. On a
bus with somebody who's violent, you're vulnerable.
Mm.
And I guess what happens is you just go into the sort of a survival mode. I didn't feel frightened of the guy in the lift. I was immediately appalled, but just my responsiveness was just, when I look back, was just sort of, I did nothing. It was sort of pathetic. And I guess I'm also reading Clowntown, which is the book that's been written about Andrew Tate. I don't know if listeners are aware of who Andrew Tate is, but he was I was going to go and get the book.
Look, let's just call him an influencer. I mean, look, I can't speak with great authority about Andrew Tate because whenever I smell the presence of that person, I walk in the opposite direction. Have done for a long time. But from what I know, he served time in prison in a European country, and it can't be, is it Bulgaria or Romania? I think it's Romania. He has been involved in the trafficking of women, and that is the charge upon which he was imprisoned. But the damage that he does through his influencer activity, I can't even tell you, which platform he's, most
he's
popular
on. He was absolutely huge.
Yeah. Misogynist, and taught men how to be duplicitous and play psychological actions to essentially emotionally enslave their women. And I think that the greatest achievement is that you could get a woman to prostitute herself and pay you the money for it. It's like really vile stuff.
But his premise, because I'm halfway through the book, is that he ran this thing called the War Room, and men would come there and physically fight each other. And the whole thing is men have to learn to be physically violent. Like, violence is the only way you're going to have any impact in the world. And your value is assessed by how many expensive watches, fast cars, and girls in bikinis you have.
I think the power of the message is not just that you get to have this stuff, but it's somehow packaged up in, we give you the license to be true to your nature. So that becomes the hero's journey. I'm going to be true to my nature. It is my nature to dominate others, and I am going to be expert in doing that. It's vile. The other reason why I can't abhor Andrew Tate, is it is so unintelligent. The people who are consuming it, and even...
Well, are they?
I think,
are they?
Yes.
Are they actually unintelligent, or are they desperate? Because we know we've got the incels following him. So incels are the involuntary celibate. But the thing about it is that the underlying message is that women have it easy because all you have to do is be pretty. Men don't have it easy because they have to acquire wealth and power in the world, whereas women have it easy. And that men ultimately have the right to do with women what they want. Now, he is a very, very popular influencer. He's massive where he was. He doesn't believe in mental health issues. All he believes in is that men have to give him money. The messages are just really weird. He comes from a really weird background and a really weird father who had the same sort of psychopathic, grandiose notion of himself. The thing about Andrew Tate, he's not even good looking. Like, oh my God, he's awful. Anyway, I think he was a boxer or something in his early days. Anyway, a fighter of some kind. So you've got to fight. But this misogynistic message is common, and it's been picked up by other influencers. And the message is still in 2025 that women are property, right? And you can say and do what you want with them.
Yeah.
So...
and to be your best self, you actually, you indulge in doing that. So that's how it cops into the personal development movement, young men who want to be the best that they can be. So supportive Andrew Tate says, yes, it's so hard for you boys. It's
but
really
come with
hard.
me and learn to fight properly and make money, and then turn your girlfriends into prostitutes, and you can do whatever you want. And we've got on the other side of that, we've got the whole tradwife movement. And the tradwife movement is, wow, where the man is the head of the family.
Yep.
And she never makes a decision without conferring with him first. There's even some, I think it's Pete Hegseth from the States,
the Secretary of War,
who said that women don't need to have the right to vote because they have to vote the way The husband votes.
Yeah.
So the woman stays home, takes care of the family, accedes to her husband's request, never ever withholds sex from him so he can demand sex wherever he wants, never pushes back, cooks nice meals, is compliant, and the man therefore takes care of her. And if you look at Andrew Tate, he would absolutely agree with that framework.
That's right. And they'll cherry pick history and they'll basically build the argument that it is our natures to work in ways that harmonizes this dynamic. So again, it's personal development in its stickiness. You know, a lot of people looking to themselves wanting to be better. And this is a way where you get sort of the dopamine hit of power over other people. And some people are worse with that than others. But this was the culture of the group that you saw with the fracas outside the flats.
100%. They had that absolute, I'm in charge. There was a lot of sort of pointing to their groins and hip thrusting, and I won't use the language that they use because I can't on the podcast, but it was very violent and come and get me and I'll take you on. And the girls were sort of twittering around them.
And you spoke up in that environment, so what was different in the lift?
I told you before. I didn't feel unsafe.
I
was in a big public environment. I didn't feel unsafe.
Okay.
I did feel unsafe in the lift. Well, I didn't feel unsafe, or did I? Yeah, maybe I did. I just think I was blindsided. I was so surprised that someone would make a sexual comment to me quickly.
Was it because he was old?
That what?
I mean, you described him as an older man, and there's something even slightly insulting, as if he'd really be punching above his weight if he was older, right?
Yeah.
The kids outside the building were young.
Yeah, they're much younger than my own children. I felt perfectly in my rights to say something to them. Plus, it was in a public place. It was fine.
Could it have been something to do with, what has been ingrained in us about respecting the older generation?
No, absolutely not. Nothing to do with it.
Okay.
It's not that.
You didn't humiliate him, though, when you
I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that is my point. I didn't do anything. Me, well-versed in critical thinking, understands the way the brain works, write books on women making good decisions, and yet I literally just stood there. And I talk about that because in a lot of rape cases, what they say when the defense comes in to defend the perpetrator, they often say, well, the woman did nothing. She did nothing. She didn't scream. She didn't do anything. She didn't say stop. She did absolutely nothing. Therefore, she was complicit in the act. And that's why the legislation around this is sort of changing, or they're trying to, because we know that what happens is the brain goes into fight, flight, and you go into freeze. You literally, and I reckon in a very small way, I went into freeze. My brain went, I don't know what to do here. So I'm just, I went into freeze. In the bus, a little bit the same. I certainly didn't go into fight on the bus because it was such an unknown thing I was looking at, such an unknown quantity. I didn't go into fight and I didn't go into flight. I just went into, sat there with this woman who came and sat next to me, and we both went to, well, we better stay on the bus until he gets off, which I guess is a version of freeze. So I think what happens is we get into these dangerous situations, right, that blindside us, and we simply do nothing. And I think probably there is an instinctive response in us. So it was almost like we just become sort of like marsupials. And in the lift, I became like a friendly marsupial. I guess some part of my brain thought, what if he hits emergency stop and I'm stuck in here with the prick, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a way, we need to respect that, because society still is saying to women, you need to stay safe. You need to not, wear clothing which is alluring and seductive. You need to not walk across a park at night. You need to make sure you're staying in a well-lit place. Well, the message is still around women trying to preserve themselves, as opposed to how about men start just not making inappropriate sexual comments and raping women? How about that as an option? And yet I think we're still on this trajectory, and what's going on in America doesn't help with this whole, conservative tradwife thing, which of course, as we know, the church saying that men are in charge, the domestic violence in those environments is off the scale because men feel they can do anything. It's really problematic, and it really, really pissed me off. The whole thing really pissed me off because I thought, why am I now in 2025, why am I still having to deal with this shit? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I think it's really important that for us to know that if you are in a situation like that and you don't come back with the witty repartee, that you don't come back with the brilliant comeback comment, if you do just stand there like a big dork and do nothing, well, that's perfectly fine, because in some way that's us women just trying to survive.
If you don't return serve, then there's no game.
Yeah.
You don't have that luxury on the bus when someone's actively at you. But
And you don't have that luxury if you're being sexually assaulted. You would like to think you would like to think that you would be able to call out, cry, say no, do something, and yet so often we're just pushed into this position where we go into survival mode. So I guess the point is, what we need is more men to say to other men, why don't you shut the fuck up and stop saying that it's not funny? That's not funny, right?
Yeah.
But how many men do, in your experience, or how many men just let it go through to the keeper?
What you want me to give you a percentage?
Pass my phone, please. Oh, I don't know, not percentages, just anecdotal evidence would be fine.
I'm a bit of an outlier. In some groups when I pipe up, there's a lot of blokes around the table who are probably thinking, I should have said that. So maybe I'm just a little bit earlier than the others. But no, I do know men of this, males of our species who are, by all intents and purposes, part of our community, who would subscribe to belief systems and narratives around male dominance over women to some degree. There's nothing so extreme as trad wives, or none of us would tolerate domestic abuse. So it's I guess a different level on the spectrum, with the groups of men that I travel with. But yeah, look, I definitely know it as a cultural thing, where that there's the added level of we're not supposed to be joking about this sort of thing, nudge nudge, wink wink as well. So it's a it's the source of a whole lot of dopamine for unemotionally intelligent.
I think we've got to be really, really careful about saying it's a matter of intelligence, because there's plenty of men. Just look at the medical industry here, the number of surgeons that are accused of shocking misogynistic behaviour, and they're highly intelligent.
Yeah, sorry.
It's cultural.
I tried to insert the word emotionally in front of the intelligence.
You were too slow.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, it's really annoying. And I think we women have to understand that the change is coming, but it's really, really slow. And for every one of you out there that's listening, have a conversation with the men in your lives and just say, it has to come from you. You are the beginning of the change in the narrative, not us. And just be careful who we vote for. If we're going to vote in politicians that believe in some weird Christian doctrine where men are at the head of the households and women have to be compliant, wow, where is that going to head us? The whole anti-abortion thing, the whole thing is just so anti-women.
To think that you can have control over any other demographic, this idea that I believe in freedom, but not for everybody. Well, then you don't believe in freedom.
We've got control over our children, right? We have to have control over our children.
Well, that's
I guess
a collaboration, though.
It's not.
With our children? What?
When you're an adult, when your children are small, you've got full control over them.
Yes.
But brings me to men and women, that men infantilize women by trying to have control over them. It's like they're children.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say that as early as possible, we collaborated with our children.
Yeah,
On different things.
We're magnificent parents. There's no two ways about it.
You'd start with collaborating on the unimportant stuff, like what would you like to have for dinner tonight? Then you'd graduate to where shall we have a holiday this year?
But that's when they're older. When they're little,
Yeah,
they're fully under your control.
I'm talking about right from the start. There's a gradient. Right from the start, you collaborate with your children around the game you play and how long you play it for. Don't you?
Yeah, I guess.
What? You sound disappointed.
I don't know.
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, are you good? It's always good to agree with me.
Yeah, look, I'm agreeing with you, and I'm saying that there's the opportunity for collaboration with anything, anyone, at any age. There's an opportunity to give and take. And this is the trouble with the absolutionist divestment of power rankings between men and women, is that it's fixed, and it's just, that's not life. And so I think that, yes, if the neurosurgeons that are manhandling their...
Just normal surgeons.
Okay.
Where'd you get neurosurgeon? Just surgeons.
I was trying to think of
It's actually probably
it's
orthopedics,
Okay.
let's face it.
So, yes,
They're the most annoying.
It's not that kind of intelligence, and I guess we can call it emotional intelligence, but, perhaps that capacity to be able to collaborate with other people and share power with your
It's
spouse,
cultural,
your
isn't
sister,
it? It's
your
cultural.
daughter. That's right.
And
it is
we've got
cultural.
the culture has to be changed, but it has to start with men. I'm sick of hearing what I have to do differently. My darling daughter walks home. She's in her late 20s now, walks home. She's a lawyer, so she's no dummy. She rings me on the way home. We talk about how many people are on the street and if there's lights. I mean, it's terrible, right?
No, look, it is terrible.
Yeah, but I won't now walk the track along the coast
The headland.
from DY to the headland, from DY to Kirka on my own.
Yeah, I'm sorry
and you
about that.
can, but you can.
Yeah,
You can just, except for your knees, because your knees are shot.
Thanks.
I could actually walk it quicker than you. It's not safe for me.
And that's not right. Yeah, look, what can I do other than accompany you with my sore knees?
But not quick enough. You're not quick enough.
What?
No, you're slow.
You are...
You're really slow. In fact, if you had to defend me, I did think
This
about
is
ringing.
so not true.
If I
You are
thought about ringing
lying
you.
barefaced.
I thought when I was on the bus, I should ring David and see if he can make it out of the unit in time to meet the bus. But then I thought, on your bad knees, hobbling down the
come on.
stairs, hobbling down the stairs, it'd be a disappointing outcome.
You're awful, Muriel.
I know, I am awful. So that's all I wanted to say. It's been a really annoying experience for me. Not your knees.
Okay, sorry. Yes,
and I think
yeah.
all men, it's up to you. Not up to us, it's up to you.
Okay,
We've had enough.
all right.
It's up to you.
Challenge accepted.
Yep, you and your mates.
Scratch my back for a moment.
No, I won't.
What? But
What am I, a tradwife?
Ow.
Would you like me to cook you some brownies tonight?
Listen, Miss Queen of Primary Attribution Error.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of cooking lately.
I know you're not included. You're not included in the horror story, David.
I know.
You're an exception
Yeah,
to the
I
horror
know.
story.
But I am sad that you can't walk along the beach.
It's really
And I'm
sad.
angry about that too.
Although the last time I did the worst thing that happened to me was I got attacked by a magpie. I got bombed by a magpie.
And I bet it was a male.
I don't know
of
what
the
it was,
species.
but
No, it was actually a female of the species.
it terrified.
Because it's her nature.
Do you know, in Australia, apart from the snakes and the spiders and just the variety of deadly insects like the irrigangi up in northern Queensland, it's half the
It's
size
actually
of
a
your...
jellyfish, not an insect.
Yeah, but it's half the size of your little finger, and if you get bitten by it, apparently you beg to die. We have some horrendous
It's very
things.
painful, but now you're going to complain about the magpies.
Yeah, apart from the horrendous things that can kill us every time we walk out. I was doing the walk around the headland and this thing bashed me on the back of the head. I turned around and it was a magpie. And once they start dive bombing you, they're relentless. And I was running and screaming. And then these it is funny. And then these men came out of this, that they were builders, and they came out of this house and said, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" And I said, "No, this bird is dive bombing me." And the guy got a hat and sort of made it go away, and that was it. And it was really embarrassing.
I'm so glad you told that story, though, because as you told that story, I was thinking about what could you expect. You know, two guys came out.
They were really nice.
And they were really nice.
Because most people are.
And most men really are.
Yeah,
You know, catch them on a bad day. Some are worse than others, and some people are just fairly dreadful all the time. But
and on that
most men
note,
are good.
Most men, well,
Yes, you know, the guy who came up to you downstairs. You know,
Yeah,
the guys on the bus. I think it's terrible that you're in that situation, but I do think,
well, I had to corral them. I had to say to them, "You need to go down the steps first."
yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, let's not give ourselves a hard time about the fact that we sort of go into freeze in these situations. We're doing the best we can to survive. And as I just said, we are now passing the baton to men. You guys need to sort it. So on that note, stay safe, stay well, keep your critical thinking hats on. See you later. Bye. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.